ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking part in this workshop. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. My name is Bohumil Šmucr. I work for Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic, and I will guide you today through the workshop called SME Definition in Practice. And we should pay attention or go through some questions by a panel discussion. So I will introduce my dear fellow panelists. First, Mr. Petr Kadlec, partner at Havel and Partners Law Office, Czech Republic.
Hello. Hello.
Mr. János Mesáros, Prime Minister's Office, Head of Development Decision Making Unit at SME Calls, Hungary.
Hello.
And Krista Despiegeler, DG Growth, long-time expert on SME definition. So, thank you very much. This workshop will be, let's say, divided into two parts, because first of all, we would like to discuss with my colleagues the question concerning the relationships of SMEs through natural persons. So I would like to raise several questions concerning these relations. First of all is whether the judgment C-222 from the year 2004, Cassa di Risparmio di Firenze, is applicable on a natural person, because this judgment was originally made on a legal person, so whether this is applicable also on natural person. Then under which circumstances can a natural person be considered as an undertaking or entrepreneur? Related question is whether a real natural person from the meaning of SME definition can still exist, because with the position in a company there is always some responsibility, and I think it's the same in all member states throughout Europe. And the last related question is whether the provisions in Article 3, Paragraph 3 of SME definitions are obsolete or no. So now I will give the floor to panelists for the first question. So is the C-222 judgment Cassa di Risparmio di Firenze applicable on natural persons? Petr, please.
Yeah. So hello, and yeah, I'm very glad that I'm able to participate in this discussion. As was said, I'm a partner in the law firm, so basically my experience with the topic is through the clients asking us to clarify whether they can be considered SMEs or not. In the Czech Republic, as you may know, there are still lots of grants from the EU funds to be drawn from, and many times the SME definition is used either to qualify for the aid or to qualify for the higher aid. As lawyers, we get approached in the tricky situations, in the complicated situations of structures that are not easy to decide upon. And some of these are involving natural persons on top of the structure. And it's a good question regarding whether the natural persons can be considered as basically enterprise in cases where they do not conduct their business directly, but as in the case Cassa di Risparmio, they get somehow involved indirectly or directly in the management of the companies below them, which they control. And To me, it seems, as I read the judgment, that this should indeed be the case. It can be extended when such an extensive decision by the court was made with respect to legal entities. I don't see a reason why it should not be extended to natural persons and applied exactly as to legal persons. Because enterprise is defined as either a legal or natural person conducting economic activity, and the court judgment is clarifying what can be regarded as economic activity. And for that matter, my opinion is that it can be interpreted as that extensively. What do you
Okay,
think?
thank you for your direct and honest opinion. And János, your position.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello for everybody. Let me introduce myself. I'm the head of the Department of Decision Making Unit at SME Development course at the Managing Authority for the Operational Program for Economic Development and Innovation. It calls EDIOP, and it is the biggest operational program in Hungary. It mostly supports SMEs. The question is very interesting, and I'm personally very interested in SME definition. At the Managing Authority, since 2014, we managed more than 60,000 project calls, and 90% of these project calls we had to check the SME status, and we had to investigate the SME status, and of course we met natural persons too. And in Hungary, the SME investigation is not so hot topic. We had some audit experiences, but we didn't get any system failure. So the audit authorities found only just only a few specific cases. The audit authority found some failure. So we have a big experience at SME status determination, and natural persons we met mainly when these natural persons are sole proprietors. So sole proprietors is a legal act for natural persons, and we didn't met such a case as the Cassa di Risparmio di Firenze. So we in the first we don't see how we can apply these judgment on natural persons. We use the SME definitions of the Annex 1 of the Commission regulation, and our practice is based on this Commission regulation and the practice of the judgments of the European Court. And in Hungary, the rules of these SME status is not an issue. We have questions and we have interesting cases, of course, but for us in Hungary and the Managing Authority is the issue and the challenge is how to check and justify the SME status more efficiently, how we can gain data of the relevant enterprises and persons. And we met natural persons at investigating the SME status, so we can deal with it.
Okay, thank you very much, and I think that leads us to the second question, because the relations to natural persons are mainly the situation when some owner owns more companies, and what position in these companies qualifies him as an entrepreneur, and qualifies him that all these companies have to be counted together. So, Petr, please, under which circumstances would you consider natural person as undertaking? What role in the company or many companies it should have to be considered as undertaking?
Yeah. It's maybe to clarify the SME definition. It operates with the term enterprise as well as undertaking. Undertaking is a more broad definition used in state aid law, and enterprise is basically a specific term that also derives from the term undertaking. In Czech language, unfortunately, it is translated by the same word, so it's also difficult to explain to the Czech public what is being meant. But when I see, and the SME definition operates with the term enterprise. So basically, enterprise is a part of an undertaking, to put it simply, but the SME is not the whole undertaking, which is defined differently, but the SME is a specific combination of enterprises that may or may not form a single undertaking, but that also kind of complicates the matter, even in connection with other types of state aid, like de minimis, where the definition is different. But here we have to stick with the specific definition of SME, and it can be said, to put it on an example, if we have a natural person on top of a structure that controls certain companies, and there are more of them, then that natural person is not considered an enterprise, therefore connecting the companies in cases where that person does not conduct any economic activity. That can be if that person is not self-employed, which is in the Czech Republic often the case. So we advise the owners, not to have a business license, basically, because that would intoxicate the structure. But as discussed, the decision Cassaday Risparmio, that complicates the matter even more, because not only are they not allowed to have a business license as natural persons, they should also be careful as not to be seen as basically directly or indirectly managing the companies below them. And that can happen under Czech corporate law quite easily, when, for instance, they would be appointed as directors, official directors in the companies that are controlled by them. So when they stick to the pure ownership, don't have a business license as natural persons, and they don't let themselves appointed as one of the directors or members of the board in those companies, that seems to me is a situation where they can be regarded as pure natural persons, and they don't connect the structure automatically, creating linked enterprises. Then, even in cases when they can be regarded as natural persons without this intoxication by economic activity of themselves, either via the business license as natural person or via the activity in the companies below, they can, of course, still connect when the companies are active on the same market or on adjacent markets, adjacent relevant markets, which often leads to interesting discussions. What is an adjacent relevant market or the same relevant market? As you know, under EU competition law, it's quite a complicated definition, and in certain situations, it can require a complicated analysis. And from my practical perspective, I can assure you that in some cases, and it's not only the definition of relevant market, but also the relationships within the structure, it requires a lot of hours to determine whether a certain client is an SME or not. And sometimes they apply for a grant which is not that substantial, or they only need to ensure that they are not an undertaking in difficulty. And as you may know, undertaking in difficulty is another definition which incorporates also SME definition in itself. So you need to answer the SME question, and then before you answer the undertaking in difficulty question. So these clients then often require us to work quite long hours and quite a lot of money compared to the grant that they are seeking. So that's quite an impracticality of the SME definition seen from the business perspective. Of course, it gives us work, but to them it creates costs that sometimes I ask myself whether it should not be less complicated, more clearly stated, maybe also more prone to evasion, but you know, just to avoid the transaction costs, so to say.
Okay, thank you. So just maybe basic conclusion, I completely agree with. So the sole ownership without own economic activity or without any involvement in managing the company could be considered as the real natural person under the Article 3, Paragraph 3 of the definition. Thank you. János, please.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, under which circumstances can a natural person be considered as an undertaking? As I mentioned, we use the SME the Commission regulation, and we consider a natural person as an enterprise just when it has an economic activity. We have luck, I think, because as I mentioned, these persons have a legal form as sole proprietor, and they gives in the application form these data. So in these cases, a natural person we consider as an enterprise, and of course, if a sole proprietor owns a company, then we consider it as a linked enterprise. Yes, and we in our practice we consider applicants as an undertaking connected to the economy's activities. For example, we supported NGOs, and when we supported NGOs income generating activities, then NGOs were also considered as an undertaking, considered as an enterprise by the managing authorities. When we have a complicated structure on top of one natural person, in our opinion, it's another case. If this person manages the owned enterprise and the other enterprises in the structure, it brings me to the third question. When we see joint business management and these companies has coordinated economic decisions, then we can consider these formal independent enterprises as a linked enterprises. But in this case, we don't consider these natural person as an undertaking, but we consider these enterprises linked enterprises. And we had some cases when then we couldn't support companies because we verified them we can't verify them as an SME.
Okay, thank you, and that's smoothly bring us to the third question. But I think we have already heard an opinion. So, can a real natural person, in the meaning of SME definition, still exist? My opinion is, after the discussion, that under some circumstances, still yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but it's not always an easy answer. And there are also like de facto cases where even if a person would not be involved formally in a company below as a director, let's say, and there was evidence of de facto management of that company I believe it could be also it could also lead to a conclusion that a natural person is involved in an economic activity and therefore interconnects the group of companies, even though they may be active on different markets. And maybe I should say, just to to enlighten the discussion, that the Czech Republic is a really, I'd say, under very strict scrutiny in case of SME definition. You might not know, all of you, that our former prime minister is actually involved in criminal investigation, because he is a very well-known billionaire, and he had a project, a successful project, I'd say, but a project done under SME, under SME definition by a company that is not part of his business formally, and but that is under scrutiny of the authorities, has been for many years, and so he's even facing charges for that, and therefore it, I think, sort of opened up the theme of SME in the Czech Republic. I think we are even maybe suffering from over enforcement in the Czech Republic because of this case. Whereas in other countries, it may be that the SME definition is sort of, a matter of a declaration, and the authorities don't go into so much detail when checking for the grants. But here, it's become an issue. So.
Yeah, that's probably the main reason for current discussion, to bring some, let's say, legal certainty and unified approach, because it's not very good if we have some opinion, auditors have different opinion, and potentially policymakers have different opinions. So I really welcome that discussion. Please, János, do you want to add anything?
Yes, so luckily in Hungary the SME status is not so hot topic, and we at the managing authority we have to deal with lots of projects and lots of applications. And of course, we had to check the SME status at each application. And if we would consider that, if we can, we would start to investigate whether the owners and the persons who has responsibilities and duties in the managing company, and if we would start to investigate how what kind of duties they have, and we start consider them as an undertaker, it would make the determination of the exact SME status more complicated. We want to automate this SME status investigation, and it's a hard topic, because we have very complicated networks and very interesting cases. And the managing authority doesn't have any information about the person's responsibilities and duties. So we don't. So in our opinion, a real natural person still exists, and if we see some cases when there are coordinated economic decisions, we investigate these cases.
Okay, I completely agree that there shouldn't be. The fund management shouldn't be criminal investigation.
Yes.
Okay, we can move to the next question, and it is the final conclusion, whether the provisions of Article 3, Paragraph 3 concerning natural persons and links to them, whether they are obsolete or no. But I already probably know the answer, that in some circumstances it has its place in the definition. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, I agree that it has a role. Although if if I were asked a personal opinion, I really consider the SME definition as unnecessarily complicated. I would since we use it so much in the Czech Republic, in so many grants, so many situations, even now with the energy crisis, the reduced energy tariffs are reserved for SMEs. So companies are wondering whether they are SMEs, or whether they can apply for the reduced energy tariff or not. And you know, they have complicated structures, and it takes time, legal time, to answer these questions, and it also creates risks because our answers are not always 100%. Sometimes it is a matter of a relationship between two natural persons, you know, whether they are on good terms or not so good terms, so as to connect, you know, two groups of companies or not. We had questions concerning persons who are in a formal relationship but are definitely not on good terms. On the other hand, persons who are not in an official relationship but on suspiciously good terms, sort of coordinating their activities, and we had to investigate, you know, how much they really coordinate in practice, these companies that they own separately. So just for as a matter of good administration, and as we call it in Czech and Latin, de lege ferenda, as in terms of a law to be prepared, considered in the future, I would even consider a much simpler. I might stick with an undertaking definition, the general definition of an undertaking, rather than a specific SME definition involving also these partnerships and business angels, which also many times is used quite creatively by the companies to claim that they are an SME.
Okay, thank you very much. We are a little bit running out of time, so János, please, short reaction to the last question from the first group.
Short reaction, okay. As I mentioned, sometimes we have a practice to determine the SME status, but a simpler definition would make us happy. I think it would make the life of the SMEs, the life of the work of the managing authorities easier, because we challenge the discovery and the evaluation of the formally independent but in life not independent companies. We have a lot of work with them, and if companies have coordinated economic decisions, if there would be a simpler, more exact definitions for it, we will be happy.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I would like to ask Krista with some final conclusion or reaction on this group of questions on the relations through natural person. Please, Krista, floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Kerkosand. I'm from DG Grow, and we are the owners, if you want, of the SME definition. But since you are running out of time, I could easily come after the other questions on the Kerkosand case that you want to raise, because I mean I can wrap them up, and I also have some questions in the chat, so I don't mind if you want to use the time to discuss what you wanted to discuss.
Okay, as you wish. So the second group of questions, I think we can connect these two questions into one, because first one is whether the 745 from 2017 Kerkosand case mean watching 2 years period in getting or losing SME status, or immediate impact on SME status. And the second question is whether these changes in SME status could be asymmetric. To explain is whether, for example, merger could mean immediate loss of SME status, and division of some small part from originally large company could mean, for example, getting the SME status after two-year period. So, Petr, please, floor is yours.
I'm aware that in the Czech Republic there have been discussions and even a change of practice, I believe, whereby initially the view was that the change from an SME to a large enterprise kicks in immediately, and also that it needs to be taken into account also during the period when the grant project is ongoing, and not only at the time when the grant is awarded. And I understand the Kerkosand decision as rather hinting that we should stick to the probably more beneficial interpretation that we always need to observe the two-year period, and at the time of when the grant is actually, when the decision on award of the grant takes effect, and the two-year period should be evaluated, and even if that means that at that exact moment the SME is not strictly speaking an SME anymore, I would give it a favor that the requirement of 2 consecutive periods, closed accounting periods, so when during these 2 completed consecutive periods the undertaking does not fulfill the criteria for the large enterprise, then they should be considered a smaller or medium SME. Even later at the project, as the grant project proceeds. So I see it as it should be interpreted in favor of those companies. But on the other hand, when we talk about the opposite, it is the same. So it is like just a reversed side of the coin. So even the asymmetric situation should be interpreted exactly the same.
Okay, thank you. My remark is just that I see quite highly problematic from the position of managing authority to get someone the status of SME if I have the clear evidence that it became the part of larger holding to provide finances for next 2 years. That could be highly problematic. So that's why I am personally of the opinion that in these cases the changes should be rather asymmetric. But it's hard to explain to our clients and applicants.
I see your motivation. On the other hand, I see a need to draw a line exactly at some point, and also in certain situations where this situation that you don't like were created with the intent to get funds. Then it could be interpreted maybe even in terms of criminal law in certain situations. But in a normal situation, when it just so happens that the company grows or becomes a part of something bigger, at a certain point, I think they should still benefit from the SME status as long as they fulfill the 2-year period when the grant was granted. We had cases like that.
Okay, thank you very much. And please, János, your opinion, 2-year period, yes or no, and asymmetric changes.
Yes, thank you. Nowadays, the change in the beneficiary's ownership is the most exciting topic at our managing authority. We separate 2 kinds of change in the SMA status. If a company is awarded grants, and it develops, and it grows, and it changes from, for example, a small-sized enterprise to a medium-sized enterprise. Of course, we consider it it is a good, is an automatically development, and the beneficiaries doesn't have to do anything. The aim of the grants is that these companies should grow and develop. But in the ownership, change in ownership is an exciting topic, because the Commission regulation doesn't include any legal act according to this. Only the SME guide from European Commission tells that change in ownership makes an immediate have an immediate impact on SME status. And of course, sometimes before the grant is awarded, but after the grant is awarded, the beneficiaries have to tell the managing authorities that its ownership has changed. And in these cases, we have to investigate the SME status as well. And the court judgment tells that the guide used by the Commission is not considered as a law and is not strong enough to override and restrict these 2 years, this rule of for the 2 years period. And the other thing I mentioned, that the court pointed out that it was not enough examining only the recipient, the new owner, but the owner had to be taken into account too. And we see that this area needs some regulation, some simple and exact regulation, which is easy applicable for the managing authorities, and which is also easily applicable for the SMEs and for the SMEs and beneficiaries. We had some cases when the beneficiaries had to pay back the grant because the SME status has changed because of an ownership, and we would have some proposal for these ownership change, and of course included merger and divisions. That we think that. If there is an ownership change, the SME classification, SME status should change immediately from the day of change in ownership, and the SME classification should be determined on the basis of the new ownership structure, including the new partner and linked enterprises, and we see that it should be determined. The SME status should be based on the last approved accounting period. Let me tell an example. If we have two companies, one company with 200 employers, and this company will have a new owner with 200 people, employing 200 people, or based on the last approved accounting period. If we summarize, these two linked enterprise have summarized 400 employer, and we consider it. We don't consider it as an SME from the change of the ownership. So we see that this area needs some simple regulation.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree here that we need the legal basis for our decision, because to do it just by feeling that it's right, it's not a good idea, because it gets us between a rock and hard surface, because we are respecting the line from policymakers, but our clients and applicants are then against us, because they say you have not firm foundation in the definition itself. So here it is highly problematic. So thank you very much. I am end of my list of questions, and now please, Krista, if you want to somehow summarize or comment, floor is yours.
Thank you. The questions that are raised here are very very pertinent, I can see, for you. But I think it deserves putting this a little bit in its context. DG GROW developed the first SME definition in 1996. It was revised then in 2003 to adapt to the inflation and what have you, and also it brought in this this idea of the companies connected via natural persons. This was not in the original text, and also it provided for better conditions for venture capital, for instance, because it wanted to promote this. The definition is quote in a recommendation, and this is for a purpose. So it's a recommendation. It was the result, if you want, of a consensus by the member states. In the situations that you described here, you often mentioned in Hungary, in Czech Republic, here and there. So many member states, so many different contexts, so many different kinds of enterprises. And this recommendation was trying to find a consensus to describe these companies, you know, and determine when they would be considered an SME and when not. What is very important also is to think of the spirit of the of the SME definition. What was actually the purpose? The purpose is to single out companies that face particular challenges due to their size, because they are small. They face tougher conditions maybe than bigger ones. This was the purpose of the recommendation, and the definition is a text that reached consensus, if you want, by the member states. So this is also why, in itself, it has no legal power, let's say. It derives its power from the legal texts in which it is referenced. And it's also seen then in the context of these legal documents and in the policy areas where these apply. As DG GROW, as a Commission, we provide guidance, we provide help. We have developed the user guide. We have the help desk in DG GROW. DG Competition has the wiki, where the member states can ask questions and get the replies, to help to have a common approach and a common application. We have seen, and the court has emphasized this several times, that the user guide, for instance, is not a legal instrument, and this is not the purpose neither. It's just to explain what we had in mind and how we see this. Then how this is applied in a particular context. To give you a very practical example, if I sell the clothes of my children, then my children are too big and I sell their clothes. If I do this on a regular basis, our taxation authorities might get an interest in me, and they might think, you know, you should pay taxes on this. Will it give me eligibility for SME support? I don't think so. So this is you have to see everything in its context. When it comes to the court rulings, on certain matters, they give general guidance, but one should never lose out of view that they are in this very particular context. I mean, all the conditions match to reach this conclusion. And some guidance comes from these rulings, because if it's guidance that can be used in a very general context, but in most cases it's a very specific matter where all these conditions came together. So I would say, yeah, we understand that you have certain issues. A few years ago, and we concluded last year, we did another evaluation of the SME definition, as we do every so many years, to see whether it still fits. So what the conclusion that made me the most happy is the fact that we understood that for the bulk of enterprises, which are small, which are autonomous, it still works. It still works. So this was what I understood, what I was most happy with. And then I understand, and I hope, that the cases that you discuss here are just, yeah, very, very individual cases, and that you don't suffer too much from those. But I mean, if the SME definition had to describe all the possibilities, all the possible, situations that could occur in a company, in a group of companies, in companies working together, whether they are alone or not, we shouldn't have written, or my colleagues shouldn't have written 4 pages, they should have written a phone book, and still it wouldn't cover everything. So in that sense, I would say, yeah, the SME definition, in the evaluation exercise, with my previous head of unit, we went to the parliament, we went to the council, and we presented the findings. And as we were going along in the evaluation, and my head of unit said, if there's anyone in this room here who can come up with a solution to simplify it, to make it simple and still cover everything we need to cover, please come forward, because we would really like this. So no one came forward. Maybe someone here has a bright idea, but I mean, the SME definition, it is what it is. It is a tool to describe companies that suffer because of their size. And it is to be applied in the different contexts where we see it fit. And neither of us, not in the Commission, you will find no one who can give you a conclusion on a specific case. This is only up to the courts. So my personal advice, if you have interesting cases, ask for a preliminary ruling. And we will all learn from them how the court will interpret our ideas. Maybe they will follow how we see them, and maybe they will surprise us, and they will come up with a totally different view. This is possible. Now, if you don't mind, I have 2 questions here in the chat that people would like me to reply. So one of them is about definitions on startups, scale-ups. Unicorns are urgently needed. Could the SME definition still serve as a basis, though for unicorn the criteria are based on valuation, on not turnover or balance sheet? My colleagues in my unit have worked on the startup scale-up. We had this communication a few years ago. And I know that in the Commission there is work ongoing to see whether there is a need for a startup definition. There are already some definitions in use in state aid, what else? In Horizon, for instance, in the research programs. So could the SME definition be a basis? I would say yes. When I hear the reactions here, maybe that would not be a good idea, because it would expand maybe your problem. In any case, there is work ongoing. If you want to write an email, we can put you in contact with the services that are working on this. And then the other question is, with the high inflation wave ongoing, many SMEs will see their status change. Yes, this is also a question that we asked ourselves in the previous evaluation. And then when we did the extrapolate, well, not we, my colleagues who are the data wizards did the extrapolations and the calculations. So their conclusion was that the large majority, and I mean really, I don't have the numbers in my head, but really the large majority of the SMEs are still well below. Most of them don't even reach half the thresholds, so that we are still on the safe side. So, and I hope the reality and the inflation will stop at a certain point and will not push us to come to other conclusions. But this, we have looked at this, and there was still quite a bit of marge de manœuvre. Thank you. If there's anyone with another question.
So I think
Please.
we have space from questions from audience. Please feel free to ask.
So I have a question to the Commission. How can the Commission help more the managing authorities not to make these previously mentioned criminal investigation and to avoid these situations that you discussed before? So you mentioned that there are these recommendations, but these recommendations are not legal laws, and the use of them is also a question in a lot of cases. So I would like to ask this. Oh, thank you.
No, we have always been willing to help, of course, apply the text as we propose it, or as it is in place. But as I said, only the courts can come up with the ruling, with the decision in a particular case. We can only advise on how we see it and how we think it should be applied in general. But in the end, it is only the court. So.
Then we have to invite the court and discuss it.
Yes, good idea. Good idea.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this discussion. It's rather a reflection than a question. It's just we spent almost an hour here in a highly competent legal company to discuss a very tiny element of a definition. So my point here is that it's obvious that the definition is too complicated. It causes a lot of uncertainty and problems for the managing authorities, but most importantly for the beneficiaries. And also the problem is that for the managing authorities to be on the safe side, they just cut all the border cases, and then they deprive a lot of companies from access to funding. So, of course, no one of us has the formula how to improve the definition, except one. For example, to have alternative criteria instead of leading criteria, the headcount. I've been participating in a lot of discussions, and the answer usually is that the headcount is easy to be checked, and that's why it's the safest harbor to take it as a common denominator. But now we are in the digital era, so we also can check the balance sheet and the turnover. And my point is that now in the digital era, we have a lot of very small headcounts with a very large turnovers, while we have also a lot of headcounts with a very tiny turnover. And I'm pleading to give the SMEs the right to choose which two of the three criteria to apply. And then we have more cases, but I will not bother you with this. This is my only suggestion. And just one further remark. We know that this is a recommendation, but it's like an obligatory recommendation for everyone. So that's why let's not call it recommendation. It's an obligation. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
So,
Can I-
okay.
Can I have
reaction?
one?
Yeah, yeah.
I have one question to the Commission. Then thank you for the informations, and you have this user guide, and you mentioned that you share your thoughts, your opinion about the recommendation during with this user guide. And could you refresh the guide and let the SMEs and the managing authorities examples for changing for cases changing ownership, merge and divisions, because there is just one or two sentence which we can use, and we can think about it, how to apply it. There are very good examples for linked enterprises, partner enterprises, for the thresholds, how to determine the exact SMA status. But this change in ownership it makes a lot of questions for the managing authorities and for the enterprises too. And of course, we have one specific practice. The beneficiaries haven't gone to the court till, but it would be for the managing authorities, and of course we have to we could face some audits. Then it would be so we think if there isn't an opportunity to make a legal act for changing in ownership, it would be very useful to refresh this SME user guide in this topic.
But as we understood from the court, the user guide as such, of course, during the evaluation, we received comments saying that the user guide was on the one hand too simple for professionals, let's say, or people, and it was too complicated for other people. So I think the wiki would be closer to your needs then, because I can imagine that the wiki gives more pertinent technical replies.
But the problem with the wiki is that it is not available to the public. So basically, I think it's an internal.
Yep.
It's only for the communication between the national authorities and the Commission. And for instance, when we are asked by the general public, by the clients, to interpret, there is not much opportunity for interpretation. We don't have access to wiki. The court judgments, EU court judgments, there are not so many of them. It's very hard to get one. It takes a long time. We have to pass all the national procedures and then wait till many years before it is decided in Luxembourg. So it's not very practical. It covers only a few situations. So yeah, if there was a wiki available to the general public, or a more detailed SME guide, which can always have an easily understood version and a more complicated version, let's say for the practitioners, it would help a lot. And I think we are, as legal practitioners, fine with the reservation that it is up to the court to decide finally. Yeah, of course, it's just an opinion, but it's not a problem.
I really understand that we would need representatives from DG Competition here. But I have really one last remark, because I think that some suggestions here were quite simple. That situation with natural persons is quite, I would say, clarified. So we can deal with it under current circumstances. But the situation in changes in ownership structure, only minor change in the definition itself, and now the GBER is under revision. So here, from my opinion, there should be provided a provision towards these immediate changes. If someone wants managing authorities and all people dealing with SME definition to interpret it that way, so get rid of this 2-year period in SME definition and say that the changes are immediate, and we will do so. But if someone says there is written 2-year period in the regulation and ask us to deal it otherwise, we can't do it. We can't do it. We do not have the tool. So if if anybody wants us to do it with immediate change, it has to be in the legislation. I'm sorry for that open opinion, and I know that it's the part of the GBER, not the legislation under DG Grow. But if there is a legal obligation, it has to be in regulation. Thank you.
To the lady in red, you asked the question, and I didn't reply to you. No, I just wanted to say that there is actually, this is the flexibility that is offered in the recommendation, and the fact that you can choose between the turnover and the balance sheet. You want to choose to use balance sheet and turnover and not staff headcount. This is what you want. No.
No?
No.
This is what the Commission answered. It's not only the headcount.
You want to use only the headcount and no financial.
Sorry for that. All the managing authorities always take only the headcount, and if we've been sending written questions, and the answer is you have the headcount and one of the two of the others, and you cannot choose the balance sheet and turnover only. You are obliged to take the headcount, and this is a problem, especially for my country, for example, Bulgaria.
I will come to you. We
Thank
have
you.
to. I'm
Yes,
told
of
we
course.
have to wrap up. I don't know what's going to happen if we don't, but I'm told we have to.
Okay, so thank you very much to audience, my fellow panelists, and have a nice day and rest of your stay in Prague.
Sorry.
See you. Bye-bye.